Clerics. The Clerics. After an entire season of fantasy and fantasy land, as we finally get to the tail end of this, as I have been hanging on to a top 10 place on the celebrity leaderboard this entire damn time, we nailed it. The Clerics. 11th in the world out of 210,000 drafts, the Clerics nearly cracked top 10. 1% finish, 40 booster points. This was the key. All right, Zorte, massive performance, carries the shit out of fours on their attempt to qualify, and even though they came up short, he gets us 146 points. That's with no padding. Meanwhile, Mondesi, dude, you had to have had Mondesi. Highest rated player at the challenger stage. The kid's got it. He is the truth. He is the future. And in this case, he is my solution to cracking into that next level of the fantasy leaderboard. Demka also delivered 75 points for a $187,000 price tag. That is an individual that I feel like I really kind of dug through the mud to uncover, tried to sell him to a bunch of y'all. You paid attention and it paid off, didn't you? Config. Great. More success in the last month, continuing to show that ninjas can't be written off any longer. But really, I just have to say thank you, Mondesi. And thank you to this format as well. And thank you to you guys for sticking around with Fantasyland, for believing in the truth that I bring to you yet again today. All right, the major is well underway here in Paris. We've got Legends up next, more fantasy, more pick'em challenges, more Counter-Strike, more heartbreaks actually. Had some real fun this week as well, commentating the games. Had a couple real bangers and very much enjoyed that Monty versus Payne game to close out my stint of challengers. So yeah, guys, I'm having a blast right now at Blast, playing all sorts of predictions and pick'em games, and I feel very in tune with what's going on right now with players and teams and whatnot. So let's jump into this one, all right? It's another episode of Fantasyland. You know the rules. You know who I am. I don't know who you are, but I know you appreciate this stuff, so I'm bringing y'all another serving. All right? Get your plates. We're going in. We're going in to the top 5. That's right. With the 25 points that I just nailed in the challenger stage of the Paris Major, I now sit at 5th on the celebrity leaderboard. Vu is barely ahead of me. P2 is now within, touching distance, and that means I could actually lock in a top 3 finish this season. I'm feeling confident, baby. All right? I'm feeling real confident, but not overconfident. We still have to make sure we don't make any mistakes. We have a few more fantasy games to run through. Who knows? Maybe Lucy and Maniac aren't that safe up there. Okay? Who knows? Here are my predictions for how the start of all this jazz is going to run. All right? This stage of the major is incredibly difficult to predict in comparison to the challenger stage. I'm going to get that off my chest right away. I think that there is no clear 3-0 team. There is no clear 0-3 team. But just some things of note, and I went over this in my pick'em video, which I'd really appreciate if you guys checked out. That viewership is popping off right now. And if you guys are here for your first episode of Fantasyland as well, welcome. This is where I talk all things HLTV fantasy. So, Navi top seed, and there's a couple of weird games at the start of this that I think I should red flag for y'all. We go over our teams who we predict to win before I get into the exact players, but I'm anticipating Navi in a 2-0. I think that they have a great game to open up with Gamer Legion, and that top seed will get them to the 2-0. Now, if they happen to play G2 down there, if they happen to play Heroic or FaZe, Vitality, then there's definitely a chance they lose that, right? I don't think Navi may run it through flawlessly, but I definitely think they are the favorite to be 2-0, and therefore have the highest chance of at least getting 3-0. They're not going to get upset in their opening game, I can tell you that much. 9 versus Liquid is a weird one. I'm currently kind of selling off my Liquid stock. This is a team that is only in Legends because they had the easiest run out of all of the other teams. All right, they played and beat Fluxo, Complexity, and Greyhound. I think there's a lot of teams in this list that you would say could take that exact same run, and Liquid, despite dispatching of Complexity very convincingly, and the same with Greyhound, yes, they're powering up. You could buy into that if you'd like to. I just don't think they have the mental resilience. I think there's a lot of emotional baggage. I think there's complications in the team with who's calling, what's happening, etc., and so I'm not really going there. All right, the teams that I anticipate playing very, very well are going to be Navi, FaZe, Heroic, G2, Ents, Vitality, and then things get a little wishy-washy, all right? I'm leaning into Furia because they always make top 8 at majors. I'm leaning into the 9 guys as well, just because we've seen a good amount of Counter-Strike from them. You know, if Monty are being praised as a team that has been playing so much CS in 2023 that had paid off for them in the Challenger stage, I think you can kind of put 9 in that bag as well. And then take into consideration, they've also just gone to Rio, had a good showing there. They're not flawless by any means whatsoever, but they are very capable and competitive versus quite a few teams. Their map pool is scaring me at the moment just because it feels like everybody's figuring out that Ancient is a bit of a weakness for them. But I would also anticipate that since they're playing Legend Stage and they skipped Challengers, I don't really mind that they didn't get a chance to warm up. I'm more so hyped at the idea that they have probably focused and very much fixated in on fixing and tweaking their Ancient gameplay, and maybe they bring something new to the table. I like what they do on the maps they play well, so I don't think that they're going to be undermining themselves by not looking to improve on the fringe of their map pool. Beyond that, I want to say that ENCE as well, I think, is just finding a stride at the moment. And we have to think back to Snappy's 2022 ENCE with Spinks, where constant playoffs achieved, including in Antwerp. They played on stages, and now it's time for them to do the exact same thing with Nertz. All right? He's not a one-for-one with Spinks, but he's very clearly the real deal. Enough of all that. You guys can pause on that screen. You can go through it if you choose to. Figure it out as you may. Let's get into our draft, shall we? Oops. To zoom. Alrighty. So, we get into the price tags of some of these players. Now, obviously, I'm coming off of the back of the whole Monacy Hooksy situation, but straight out of the gate, I want to say that there are a lot of very affordable, promising players in the silver grade, all right? A lot of guys who are mid 200 to 208, 207 that could definitely have a hell of a performance here, especially on a good team where you're going to be benefiting from a bunch of team points, role points, not just a hard carry, right? When I think of Navi, I think that basically everybody can do it, even if we're leaving on simple. When I think of Heroic, I think anyone can top frag, even though we're leaning on Stown and more so even Jabby as of late. So, right away, I'll tell you guys that Navi is my 3-0 for the pick'em. My formula for the Challenger stage was 2 players from my 3-0 team, followed by 1 player from 3 separate teams. And I'm going to keep that formula for this stage of the Major too, just because I nailed an 11th. That's the best fantasy I've ever done. I'm going to try to replicate the exact same recipe of success. I don't think I should try to change that because it works for this format, it works for the opening best of ones, etc., etc. With Navi in mind, there's one individual outside of s1mple who, like I said, because of the silver price tags, I don't really want to touch a gold player. Electronic, 203K. Super affordable, super promising. You go back and look at Rio, he's not too far off from s1mple. Electronic, even though sometimes on his T-sides can play very aggressively and can ultimately get himself killed, I think that with their seeding, the fact they open versus Gamer Legion, the fact they may then just play ninjas in pajamas, I don't think Electronic's going to have a hard time until he gets to a 2-0 matchup. And with those best of ones, I want to take somebody who's in the front line, who's looking to farm rating right out of the gate, somebody who's looking ferocious, in form, and ready to take over this major. So Electronic to me at that price tag is a must-have. Much like I said last event, the Zorte, Demka, and Config were the players that you should have. Regardless of whether you want 2 Navi players, regardless of if you think that maybe they're going to struggle to get through, Electronic is a must-have at this price. I say that with confidence. I want 2 Navi players, and I'm going to take Perfecto. We know already Perfecto's great at activating the support role, but his individual level is also starting to peak again in the last month. Perfecto is somebody who back in 2022 towards fall finals was just farming fantasy points. And then with the inclusion of NPL and the departure of Sumdai Young, we got further away from Perfecto's success. It's been back and forth. There have been flashes of it ever since, but the more we've gotten closer to this Paris event, the better I think Perfecto has been playing, and we really did see that showcased in Rio. Here's an example, of course, of what I'm talking about with Electronic stats. This is Electronic over the last month, a 1.16 rating. He just had a very bad map versus Navi when they lost, or excuse me, versus Heroic. But everybody else, the Ninjas, big. He's farming these guys. And that's the caliber of team you can expect Navi to be playing against at the start of this event. So considering that I think he'll have very, very impactful performances in those best of ones, and that padding points are right around the corner for a team like Navi, I think Electronic, again, here's the evidence, is a total shoo-in. But I was talking to somebody. I was talking to the Queen of Fantasy. That's right. The currently #1 ranked person on the celebrity leaderboard. I'm talking about Lucy Luce. All right? I know Lucy's out there. She swings by. Okay? And Lucy said to me that NPL has piqued her interest. I'm going to share that information with you guys, but nothing more. Her secrets are my secrets, except for this NPL decision, because I find it very curious. It's curious because if you were just looking at Rio, you'd think, oh God, I'm not touching NPL. Look at all these red performances. But while I was at the Americas RMR, I didn't get a chance to watch all of Europe. And look at this. NPL versus Into the Breach, Falcons, FaZe, Mongols, and Ninjas had a ton of green performances. A couple bad maps versus FaZe here as well, but we've also got victories versus Outsiders and Heroics in best of 3. So Navi, they're starting to get something out of NPL. The promise that he's supposed to be able to show us was on display right before Rio. And then Rio kind of made it wishy-washy. A little uncertainty comes through, and I'm personally not going to take that gamble because I just think that Perfecto's the safer bet for this stage of the major. I'm not looking to take a risk on NPL, even though he's like 186,000. I would actually say that there's a lot of parallels to be drawn between NPL at this stage and Demka at the last stage. Except NPL actually has an even better team, even better chance. But with the probability of him having 1 or 2 bad performances, I'm not touching it. I think Perfecto's the consistency, and because they go through 3-0, NPL may not have enough chances to recover from a slow start if he has one like he did in Rio. But it is definitely worth checking out because already the price tags on Navi are so good, and with NPL specifically, it gets even better. Someone else I want to highlight here is Madden. And we'll get back to the draft in a second, but Madden just had a hell of a performance at this stage. We see Ents take a 3-0 run, and Madden's a big part of that. Huge performance versus OG and Ninjas, and then a 0.78 on FaZe's first map when they lost 12-16. So, with 2 players already in from Navi, I just highlighted Ents, and before we get back to him, because I kind of jumped the gun, I want to talk somebody else. G2. G2 are clearly warming up. And if you remember the Challengers stage Fantasyland, I alluded to my doubts of JKS based on the last month. I've been really fixating in on the last month of a player's performance when I'm drafting. And I think now, JKS being just a couple steps behind m0NESY at the Challenger stage means we're going to get the G2 that was winning events just 6 months ago. This is already a fantastic sign for JKS because while I think he has ups and downs in his performance throughout a period of months, I think that when he's having a good week, he's having a fantastic 2 weeks, and therefore, right now, we're on an uptick from JKS. So he's going to be my pick from G2. This is another team I expect to go through cleanly. The G2 we got in Challenger stage looked absolutely untouchable. And yes, despite it being off of the back of m0NESY's godlike carry, JKS at 205, I can't ignore that. He was getting close to like the 215s, 220s when G2 were really winning. And therefore, I think that's more of an accurate evaluation of his ability to perform, right? If he was up there with Hunter at 213, I think that's about fair, but JKS at 205 with m0NESY and Nico on his team as they're running into, a potential playoffs run, I'm on it. So that's 3. 2 Navi, 1 G2, and like I said, I'm going to take 1 player from each other team. Heroic's next on my list. I think that Heroic is a team that doesn't falter versus lesser opposition. When Heroic lose, as of late, it's either in a grand finals or versus a top 10 team. Will they get through 3-0? I think they're actually a fair bet, but they have a tough opening matchup, and that's versus FaZe. The same reason that, G2 versus Vitality is a little wishy-washy. They have difficult opening games. That's why I'm not leaning into them for 3-0. Even if I think that, Heroic could straight up beat Navi in a best of 3, I'm just going to lean Navi because they're more likely a 2-0, but I'm not writing off Heroic in any way, and much like Navi, they're quite affordable. If we were talking playoffs, I'd be looking at Jabby, his price tag of 211, as he's trying to surpass Stown as the most consistent and highly rated player is one thing. But I want everybody to take a quick glance back at the RMR stats and remember that on this team, we have a best of one warrior, okay? This format is the same as the RMRs. This format is the same as the opening match in Rio. In best of ones, as of late, Shush is the guy. Now, normally, I always say avoid Shush because when Heroic are having blowout games, he's not necessarily the person who gets into the front of the pack. That's usually where Jabby, Tess, Stown, and Katie will start going crazy, running at their opponents, not letting off the throttle whatsoever. But I think Shush has been getting in on it. A couple of these rounds where you see them picking up P90s and etc., Shush is having fun. And Shush is kind of, I think, opening up to this more aggressive, heroic pack mentality, where before he was still like, the ugly duckling, trailing behind the rest. Not that he's ugly. Shush is beautiful, inside and out. But $200,000, and that's a heroic player. This 4, I am highly confident in straight away. The double Navi, JKS, and Shush pick. This is what I love. Now, I said, of course, Madden. And if we throw Madden up here at 194,000, because he's coming on a team of Ents that I expect to win, I think this right here is an excellent draft. Okay, this is a draft that I truly believe in, but at the same time, I don't know if I want to lock this in just yet. I have a little uncertainty between this last player, and I want to highlight Madden just because if you're somebody who believes in Ents, and if you're somebody who believes in recency, Madden is playing fantastically. I just think that Madden sometimes have off maps, and when those off maps happen, they're like pretty bad. 0.45 ratings. If we look at Madden in the bigger context as of late, Challengers was phenomenal. Props to him. Total respect from my behalf. But I just, Madden's not a kind of guy who generally takes over the server. If Ents are winning blowout games, he's getting his rating, don't get me wrong. Somebody instead of Madden that I think we need to consider, and someone that I'm kind of on the fence with right here, this is pretty much 50-50 in my mind, is going to be Config. Now, I don't expect Ninjas to get into playoffs, but I've already looked back at my Challengers draft and saw that Zorte got me 125 points, despite them not getting through either. Look at the matches that Config is putting up lately. All right, he has had only 2 red ratings in the last month of competition. One of them, a 9-16 versus 9, and that loss was still a 0.84 rating. Then a loss versus 4s, where again it's 0.95. A little while ago, we were looking at Config drop like 0.5 maps twice within one series. Nowadays, even within the series that they're losing, Config is putting up positive ratings. And then when we get great victories, okay, matches over Greyhound, Mouse, yes, these are teams that didn't ultimately make it to Legends, and therefore that's why I'm on the fence here. I think Madden could ride the coattails of his better teammates, as Config is just trying to go carry mode for a team I don't really believe in. But there's something here. He's dismantling 9 in overtime on Mirage, a 30 bomb. When's the last time you saw 30 bombs coming out of Config? This is just a sea of green. And so I think we have to take Config pretty seriously. I'm not going to lock him in for now. I'm going to take Madden as my 5th. All right? This is my team, the Eldrazi. Now, if you guys didn't know, Fantasyland, my teams are always named after Magic the Gathering creature subgenres, all right? Warriors, clerics, berserkers, merfolk, goblins, trolls, dwarves, the list goes on. But the Eldrazi, if you don't know Magic, some of the most fearsome creatures in the multiverse, okay? These are like godlike beings. And I think right now, that's what I feel like, okay? 7 out of 9 on my pick'ems, an 11th place finish on my Challengers draft, and now a formula that I feel very in tune with. I just think that my methodology to drafting right now in HLTV Fantasy is on point, and so I'm really confident in 4 out of these 5 players. I may switch to config before the event starts. Make sure you guys check the pinned tweet down beneath in order to double check what I did lock in with right before this one goes live. I want to talk about other drafts just really quickly, and that would be this one here. It's the same 3 of Electronic, Perfecto, and Shush This is the, win condition of my last draft with Mondesi and Hooksy. And remember that I was trying to tap into the whole, like, everybody picks Hooksy so you can't get punished vibe. Well, there's less Hooksy pickers for this stage, and I think that's because of the affordability of some of these other stars. With that as well, if G2 get through and start taking padding points, I think Hooksy is going to have a rougher time at this stage of the major than he did in Challengers. Because even in Challengers, you can see he's putting up red ratings, right? Mongol's complexity in Apex, and he's not even going white, let alone green. A 16-3, and he's still only got a 1.19 rating. So we're not getting some like godly performance from Hooksy. Back at the RMRs for the last major cycle, he'd have like a pop-off map, 25 kills, like he did here versus Cloud9 in a 16-6 win. But we haven't gotten one of those in Paris. We haven't gotten one of those since the 23rd of last month. So I think I got what I needed from Hooksy in order to afford Mondesi in a stage where he could stomp. And now I'm going to let him free, all right? I'm getting away from the Hooksy landmine. I feel like it's like I'm kind of cranking the jack in the box, and it's just about to explode in my face. So I'm going to let go. I'm going to stop playing this dangerous game with Hooksy, and I'm going to avoid that top-heavy draft. This is the other one, okay? This is the one that I wish I had the balls to draft, and I may also just straight up switch to. I have Furia going through for the playoffs because they always make top 8 at majors. And Yuri looks phenomenal right now. He is not that far off Quesarado, who is seemingly one of the best riflers in the world this year. After Rio, Yuri is somebody you can believe in again. I really think that Yuri is thriving in Art's new style of calling and the system that Furia are using to look better and better. And obviously I'm still tapping into Electronic, Perfecto, JKS, and Config. So really all I'm doing is replacing Shush here. All right, I have to give up on my idea of locking in Madden and go with my second guess of Config. But like I said, those are 50-50. So if I'm willing to give Config the benefit of the doubt, and maybe ninjas get more success than not, this opens up the door to take the second best player on Furia, as opposed to Shush, who for all we know could end up being the 5th rated player on Heroic. Because that's the problem with Heroic, that's the problem with FaZe. When you have so many players that are aggressive and in your face, everybody's just gobbling up rating. But when I look at, of course, Furia, I don't think Art's going to get it. I don't think Drop's going to get it. Safe may take some of Yuri's statistics, but I just feel like this one is believing in the stars, not so much the teams. For now, I'm going with the teams. This is the Eldrazi. This is the team that I'll put forth first. But again, keep tuned on my Twitter for any kinds of updates. I hope you guys are enjoying the Blast Paris Major. Thank you guys for watching this video, 22 minutes long, but there's so much to talk about. There's so much potential, so much possibilities on the horizon for CSGO. And I'll see you guys in the next one as well. The champion stage is another fantasy draft, another pick'em challenge. We've got so much Counter-Strike to talk about, and I just appreciate you guys letting me flap my gums here on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that jazz, all that shebang, all that whoop whoop.